line. I'm going to go from the farthest end of that guy, and I'm going to go over this 2.75 again. And now I'm going to be drawing my right side view, and it's pretty much the same process. I'm going to touch off at the furthest corner here for the height. And again, very similar to how I was referencing this stapler for the front view to the top. If I have the front view here, right, and I want to look at the right side view, all I'm doing is, if this is my front, this is the right hand side of this guy. So the height should be the same as the front view. I hope that makes sense to you as well. Okay, I'm just looking at this object saying, look, this guy is this high, so this guy is this high. Okay, so again, same idea. Yeah.
My question is, because you see how we made the regular line and the center line and the top one?
Yeah.
Or the line?
Yep.
They would be in the same place for this view, would they not?
For the right hand side view? Kind of. Let me get that in a sec.
Is there one that takes priority?
Yep. So that's the hierarchy, right? So I'm going to now go, for this guy, it tells me that this thing is a width of 1. And again, I'm just going to touch off on the bottom corner there to get the length of that guy, and then come back around. And again, I don't need that line, that's just for layout, so I'm going to take that thing out of there. So to complete this guy, I know again that there's this edge right here, so that's going to need to be represented by a line. So I'm just going to go across there. And Gage's question was, what happens if I have this object line and a hidden line? In this particular view, I have them line up exactly, right? You know that that back corner is directly behind the corner we just drew. And in that case, it is going to do that line hierarchy where the object line is going to take precedence. So here, what we're going to do is just draw the object line, knowing that there's a corner that exists right directly behind it. So that's going to be all of the object and hidden lines for this particular drawing. Is there anything that you want me to go back over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it too loud, bro?
You'll be done in a second.
You can close it if you want. What's up, man?
No, I said the whole thing, but there's not likely we will do that. Just kidding.
We'll do another one in a second. So at this point, I'm going to dimension this. And I know that I mentioned to you before about the use of this dimension tool versus the old style linear dimension. Again, you can use whichever one you like better. You're going to find that I'm going to use this old one. I think it works better. That's probably not the right term. It's more reliable. I think this is probably a better way to put it. I have had problems with the newer style dimension tool flaking out a little bit, so I don't use it. I use it exclusively in Inventor, which is where it was born, and it works great there. Here, I think it's still kind of juvenile. It's still developing, if you will. So maybe they'll get it right. But for now, I'm going to use this guy. And if you remember this sheet that we had about the spacing, it's going to have the partials and overalls, and that's what I want to talk just a little bit about with this. So a partial dimension is going to be just the section. And with this guy, as you're looking at different dimension styles, the one we're going to talk about is what often MCC curriculums refer as cumulative dimensioning. That's how I was introduced to it. The one that you use in SolidWorks that you're probably more familiar with, like in industry, is datum. It starts from one reference point and then kind of spreads from there in each direction using that base point. These guys, this cumulative deal that they really like, they do this partial and overall. So because you get the datum in another class, I stick with this just because I know they prefer you to know both. And I know you're getting that there. So if you hate it, just know that you'll never have to use it past this class, but now you know it exists, okay? But this is the one that we're gonna be using. So the way that it goes is you're gonna start from one part of this overall dimension, okay? So I know that I have one part here, and I'm gonna type in 1, and then I have another part here. I think you would agree with that, I hope. So if I were to dimension both of them, it would look something like this, okay? 1 part, 2 parts. Yeah,
I got 2 questions.
sure.
Your broken lines, does that mean that something hidden in that area?
Yeah, there's the hidden corner right here, Ben.
Okay.
If I'm looking at the top view of that thing.
Then secondly, when I was doing one of those, earlier before class,
Yep.
I was wondering, when you do your line, are you typing in 2.00 or do you go?
Yeah,
to-
2.75 for the distance between the views.
Uh-huh.
I am, yep.
So you go to the line.
So I go to line, and I'm just gonna go to this corner, because it's the farthest, and 2.75,
Oh, okay.
that's what gets me there.
So that's the partial. What's the difference between the partial and the overall?
Hang on, I'll get to that. So, as I'm looking at this thing, like I said, you're gonna have 1 part, 2 parts, right? I think that's pretty easy to understand. So the way that the overall goes, and just let me do this and then I'll explain it. Don't follow with me for a second, because it's gonna get super confusing for no reason. So my overall is gonna go here, okay? And at this point, you're probably gonna notice that there's some redundancies, right? I have 2 and then 1, which I can do the very simple math for that. I am horrible at math, and I can still do that, right? And I know that that's gonna be 3. So the way that this style goes is you drop one of the parts, and then you get the information for the missing part from the overall. So on this one, it's a really easy, and the reason I picked this is because it's a really easy example. So at this point, I'm looking at 2 parts, knowing I have to dimension 1 part of the 2, and then the overall, and I can get the missing part by just subtracting. So the kind of general rule, and this is gonna sound really easy, and then we start to do it and people mess it up and they're like, I don't understand. But here's how it goes. You're gonna leave one of the dimensions out. So if you have 2, you do 1 part. If you have 3, you do 2 parts. If you have 5, you do 4 parts. You're always leaving 1 out because you can subtract all the pieces from the overall and get the missing 1. The idea, whether it's good or bad, I didn't make it, so I don't really have a horse in this race, but whether it's good or bad, the idea is that you are leaving out that information to conserve space and increase clarity. So instead of giving all these dimensions and then being like, ugh, this is a mess, it has a ton of these, you leave some of them out knowing you can get them from another location. And like I said, if you don't like it, take it up with the person that invented it. I'm just teaching you what it is. Yeah.
So my question is, when I did the 3 just now,
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
it from the top
Yeah,
point, and then
that's
I
the
did it from the
next
bottom
thing.
point.
So, in knowing that I have a partial here, I can do either part. And that's a common question is like, you know, somebody will get their drawing back and they'll be like, oh, you marked off on something. And they'll be like, because you didn't give it to me. I gave it over here. Like, okay, well, that's a different thing, okay? But let's talk just this front view. It would not matter to me at all whether you gave me this 2-inch section or whether you gave me the 1-inch section for your part. I don't care, okay? You can give me either one, but you have to give me one. Does that make sense? I hope. So if you wanted to give me this one and then the overall, it's the same amount of information. It's just a different way of displaying it. I'm not gonna mark you off for that. But if you decide you're not going to give me that information and rely on another view to give it to me, maybe or maybe not, that's accurate, all right? But we'll talk about that a little more as we go. So the last thing that I want to show you is this crazy dimensioning style is very dependent on which corner you click last.
Oh, I just have one
Yeah.
question before you go on. How do you come up, because I was late, the depth or the height of that? How-
From here to here?
No, see the top one?
Here?
When you went down, what determined the height?
So I went from this corner back,
Yeah,
right here, 2.75 up, and then I went over 3, up 1, over 3, down. So the distance between them is 2.75, and this guy is 1 wide. It's because they tell you that this depth right here is 1. Good? So, like I was saying about this tool, it's very dependent on which corner you click last. It uses that as a reference, just like the object snap tracking. So watch this. If I do this guy, and I click from this corner and then this corner and come up, and I say that I want my dimension to be 1.75, it's there. No good. Okay. But if I use the top corner last, so I click here, then the top corner last, and I pull up 1.75, it puts it there. It's a big difference, okay? And the deal is that it's taking this inch out of that offset for the dimension. So the object snap tracking is working with the dimension in order to give you the distance away. So it's, like I said, you just gotta keep in mind, it's whatever the top corner is, or whatever the widest corner is. You'll see this here in a second when I do the width of this.
Mine's not going up the right length when I type it in.
So you're clicking this guy?
Yeah, linear.
The bottom corner,
Bottom corner.
then the top corner,
Top corner.
then pulling up 1.75.
Okay, just do it.
Good. It's, like I said, it's really dependent on which corner you click last. What's up, Brad?
Why are we putting the 3 in? Is it just for practice, or you just?
No, that's the way the dimension style goes. So you're gonna do one part and then an overall.
Yeah.
So we're not worrying about like trying to match the picture?
No, we're not, no.
Okay. That's why I was getting confused.
It's still weird.
You got me into the mode where I'm trying to match everything.
Yeah, generally, the way that it goes, not always, but generally, unless it's a textbook, you don't dimension the isometric.
Why is it? It's still not giving me anything that actually right to the match.
So, I'm gonna kind of move on to this, so I'll come over and do that, so I can just see that. So as